At Weaver's Bazaar, we have a product called Sett tapes. And these are these little strips that I put on the frame at the top and the bottom. And they have little marks like a ruler so that you can line up your warp threads when you're warping your frame, and it makes the threads go on really evenly. We have a variety of sizes. They are metric. So we have them at 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2 ends to the centimetre. And I wanted to try them out, and they did make warping really, really straightforward. So if I just move this out of the way, you can see that there's a little mark, and all I had to do was take the warp around. And it does mean that if I'm moving the frame from place to place and I slightly knock them out of position, I can put them back in again very, very easily. For those of you who like to work in inches, they are 17 and a half ends to the centimetre, to the inch, 15, 12 and a half, 10, 7 and a half, and 5 ends to the inch. And what that means is that when you go up and down, that counts as 2. So the marks are spread in that way. So I have to bring the warp from the back to the front to bring them together into the warp sheet in order to get that set. So if you're doing a different type of warping where you're going round and coming back, then you would have to go in between the marks. But you could easily rule those in yourself. It would be very, very simple to do. So I did find them incredibly helpful. They're not self-adhesive, but I just used a Pritt stick, to be honest, and glued them on, and that seems to have worked nicely. I then thought, right, how am I going to warp these up and test them out? We have 6 different warp threads. We have the Venus 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, and 50 times 18. So they're different thicknesses of warp yarn, and they are for different purposes. So I decided that I would warp up each one with a different warp thread to test, to play with, and to see what happens. So I'm really looking forward to doing that, and to really trust my intuition to see how I would work and weave with these different sets. Because I usually work with the Leaner 18 at 8 EPI. I really like that. And I know my bundling sizes, I know how to use those, and you can get stuck in a rut. So I decided that I would really enjoy playing with them all and finding out how they work. And I thought that I would share that with you over the months whilst that works and builds up. Now I'm already looking at it at the 17 and a half to the inch, 7 to the centimetre with this really fine warp and the way that that's set. And I'm looking at it and thinking, that's how I would set it for plain weave on a rigid heddle loom. For tapestry, I probably want that to be more widely spaced. And I was talking about this with Alison when I'd set it up, and she said, you do know, don't you, that we have a 3.5 and a 2.5 warp tape as well? I went, no, I didn't, because when I got the set to play with, it was when we first bought the business, and apparently now we send out all of them in the pack and not just this set. So I'm going to play with these as they are, and then I think I'm going to set up another experiment, putting in the 3.5 and the 2.5 and just shifting everything up so that we can space it and see how I work with those threads as well. So I'm really quite excited about this experiment, and I hope that you will join me and enjoy it while I share with you what I've been up to and what I've been doing.